It's April 18, 2009. This is Maximize Utility. Today I want to give some tips on looking for work. My tips are primarily for kids graduating from college or still in college, and largely for kids who are doing business and economics and public policy and related areas. And I know the economy is really bad now, and it's a really, really tough labor market for young people. Just so that you can know that I've been there, I graduated from college in 1982, and the economy was in a big, bad recession then, also about the same as today. And then I graduated from graduate school in 1990, and the economy was in a recession then, too. Now, my tips are going to be a little bit different from the ones you hear at the placement office at the university. For one thing, I contend I'm going to try to ground them in maximizing utility and efficient markets. But also, I'm just going to tell you some things that other people might not tell you. Let me start out with one thing. Now, at my company, I interview a lot of workers for jobs. And I'm going to tell you something. You can't fool me. There's nothing you can do to fool me. When I talk to a person for a prospective job, I look at that person, and sometimes I say, geez, I'm talking to this young man or woman who I can just see him 3 or 4 years from now hiring a labor lawyer and suing me, even though today he sits here and tells me everything I want to hear. You can't generally fool people out there who are interviewing you. They're pretty smart. Now you might say, well, Chris, you're going to go ahead and tell us a whole bunch of tricks on how to fool people, but I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about things that you can emphasize and show you ways that you can make yourself more saleable in a tough market. Employers want people who are trustworthy. They want people who are honest. This has always been true. It might have come to a forefront in the year 2008 when there were all those financial scandals, including the Ponzi schemes, where investors were just lied to. But we always want people we can trust. And this involves big things, like whether the money's really there. It involves little things, like whether we're going to give you the key to the office. So you want to let an employer know that you will always tell the truth. Try to be sincere about it. Let them know that if you make a mistake, something that you're culpable for, that you'll come to them right away. They'd appreciate that too, rather than somebody who would hide mistakes. Here's another thing. I often get young people come to me looking for an investing job, and they boast that they did personal investing and they wallop the market. At the bottom of their resume, they'll have something, been investing for 5 years on my own, returning 38% per year, killing the market. Now that's something I'm not going to believe. I wouldn't put that on my resume unless you could literally back it up. If you put that on your resume, have a note there saying, I've got the financial statements to prove that this is true. Because I think any person like myself is going to look at that and say, this is not true. This is an embellishment at least, if not an outright lie. And they're not going to trust you in any case. Honesty is job number one. Another thing about looking for a job is the labor market is not a market like other markets. If you have, say, a farmer's market downtown and everybody's peddling apples for 99 cents a pound, and then you put a sign up, it's 89 cents a pound for your apples, you'll get all the business. Now, you can't do that in the labor market. You can't go call up Goldman Sachs and say, hey, Goldman, I know you're hiring kids like me at $50,000 a year. I'll do that same job for $40,000 a year. It just doesn't go. Now, you might say, well, how can we take advantage of this advice? Well, I can't really think of a way you can except maybe to use it in an interview where at the end of the interview they say, is there anything else you'd like to tell us? And you say, look, if I could offer my services at a cut lower than you're charging, I would happily do that. That's how much conviction I have about my product. It might be a clever thing to say. Here's another piece of advice. Let workers know that you are willing to do low-level work. You might not want to do low-level work. When I mean to say low-level work, I mean things like photocopying and answering the phone and faxing and so on. In general, there's a lot of work like that. And an employer like myself, I'm going to want to know that you're going to want to do that stuff. I don't want to end up doing your photocopying. Oftentimes we get young people who are very resistant to doing anything that they perceive beneath their dignity. Now, in most jobs today, you're going to have to do a lot of that work, so let the employer know right up front that you don't mind getting your hands dirty. If you give the appearance that you want to start being a managing director right away, people will stay away from you. And in general, when you interview, especially when you interview with the people you will actually work for, you want to let them know that you're not going to leave any tasks undone, that you're not going to create a burden for them, that you're going to be punctual, that you're going to pick up after yourself, that you're going to do a complete job, that you're going to document your work, that you're going to use good speech, that you're going to talk on the phone in a way that doesn't get clients angry and so on. And you don't want to give any appearance that you're going to lose your cool, or that you're going to leave work undone, or that you're eccentric. Because what are we looking for? We're looking for somebody to relieve burdens. We're not looking to have burdens added to us. Here's a tip about the efficient market. Now, you know the idea of the efficient market, that stocks and bonds and other securities are priced about right and it's hard to beat the market. Some people might say that's not true, and recent events have shown that it's not true. I think it's very true, and I think recent events show that it's even more true, and that's another topic. We'll get to that at another time, perhaps. But in general, when you go do interviews out there, you're going to meet two kinds of people. There are people like me who believe the market's efficient, and then if you pretend that the market isn't efficient, I'll kid you along, and I'll be willing to give you a tryout. But you're going to meet people who aren't like me, who think the market's inefficient. They think that they're beating the market, that they're some great investor or something like that, and they've been returning greater rates of return. If you detect that somebody's like that, don't try to tell him that you believe in the efficient market. He won't like it. I will guarantee you that he won't like it, and he won't like you. He'll think you're subversive. He'll think you're uncooperative. So if you really want the job, and you're talking with someone like me, don't worry, I'll give you a tryout. I'll just think that over time you'll learn that the market's efficient. But if you're dealing with somebody who thinks that the market's inefficient, always kid him along. Here's another tip. Don't overvalue benefits. Sometimes you'll be looking at a job and the salary is really lousy, but they'll keep talking about benefits, benefits, benefits. They'll give you this benefit and that benefit, the 401k and the health insurance and so on. Oftentimes, employers know that people are hot for these benefits, that people do overvalue these benefits. And then they give you a miserable salary, and you get miserable pay increases. So be a little bit wary of the jobs that tout the benefits. It's not even necessarily the jobs that give better benefits, but they tout the excellent benefit package. You'll often find that those are some of the worst jobs out there. A lot of the jobs in basic back office work have low salaries, extensive benefits, and they give very low pay raises, but then you get stuck in the job. And years go by and you get a 1% pay raise, and you keep sticking with the job because there's health insurance. You might have made a bad decision. Now, when it comes to asking for money, oftentimes it doesn't matter how much money you want. They're going to pay you about what they're willing to pay you. So you can't really jockey against them until they've made you an offer, and then maybe you can try to get a little bit more. But here's a tip if you're looking for an internship. Don't ask for any money. If you're a student who's a junior or a sophomore or whatever, and you're looking just to learn, it would be nice to be paid. And maybe you even need the pay to make your rent or something like that. But usually in my business and hedge funds and related money management, we're rich enough that we would pay you anyway. But if you're looking for pay right to start, we might shy away from interviewing you just because it's a lot of paperwork and just because it's a bad signal. We might think that by bringing on a 19 or 20-year-old, we're doing you a favor. So if you don't ask for pay, just say, hey, I'll be willing to work this job for free. I just want to learn. That'll be a nice signal. And again, in most cases, we'd probably pay you anyway, or we'd probably give you an honorarium or something like that. Be careful touting your charity and your other high-minded goals. If you go work in a business like mine where everybody makes a lot of money, people are conscious that they're making a lot of money, that they're making more than the average person out there, more than the average American and much more than the average person out there in the world. So they don't want somebody coming in who's going to scold them and criticize them for making a lot of money. So it's okay to have on your resume that you worked with the poor or with children or something like that, but don't come on too high-handed with the environmentalism and the problems in society and so on. Now, finally, here's a good bet. Right now, it looks like the sentiment is against markets. Markets don't work. We need regulation. We need government. My opinion is that's a joke. That's going to be very short-lived. We're trying to do it in the United States, but they're not doing it generally elsewhere, and they're going to prevail. Whether it's obvious in 6 months or in 6 years, I don't know. But you might want to set yourself up as somebody who believes in markets. You want to have a record anytime when you write a paper or do an interview or have something written down that you believe in markets. Because my guess is, again, that markets will prevail, and that maybe you're a sophomore or a junior and you're doing an internship, and if you sit there and tell them that you're a believer in capitalism and that markets work, and then a year from now markets are indeed working again and we're renouncing the government involvement again, you're going to be altogether more employable. So, those are some tips about finding a job in this tough job environment. They're mostly just impressing upon the employer that you're going to make a contract that is worthwhile for the employer. To put it in econ speak, that the marginal gain of hiring you is going to be greater than the marginal cost.